Angle relationships. After watching this video, I will be able to identify and use special pairs of angles. The first type of special angle pairs is called adjacent angles, and basically just means two angles that are together or right next to each other. They have a common vertex and a common side, but no common interior points. So examples are these two angles. If I had angle A here and an angle B in blue, these would not be considered adjacent angles because there is no common vertex and no common side. But all of these examples up on top would be examples of adjacent angles. Another type of special angle is a linear pair. So think of line for linear and pair for two. A linear pair is any two angles that forms a straight line and has a common side. A linear pair has a special property, meaning that it forms a straight line, so the sum of the degrees will always be 180 degrees. Vertical angles are angles that are not adjacent, meaning they are not next to each other, and it's usually formed by two intersecting lines. So a vertical angle in the example below is any angles across from each other. So 1 and 2 would be considered vertical angles, and then 3 and 4 would be considered vertical angles. Those two angles would be special because vertical angles will always be congruent. So I know that angle 1 and angle 2 will have the same measure. Angle 3 and angle 4 will also have the same measure. Vertical angles are angles across from each other and would form from intersecting lines. So think of the X portion. So vertical angles are congruent like stated before. Doesn't matter where you find vertical angles, they will always be congruent, meaning the same measure. This symbol of congruence right here, the equal sign with the little squiggly on top, is a symbol for congruence. Okay, complementary angles are two angles that form to have a sum of 90 degrees or form to be a right angle. They do not have to be attached to each other. They do not have to be adjacent angles. So, in the first example, 1 and 2 are complementary because they add up to be 90 degrees. And the reason I know that is because this larger angle in green is a right angle, and right angles are 90 degrees. The other example is also an example of complementary angles because one of them is 65 degrees, the other is 25 degrees. And if I were to add them up, I would get 90 degrees. So both are examples of complementary angles. Now, this is where it can get a little confusing because supplementary angles is the same idea like complementary. The only difference is that the two angles will form to have the sum of 180 degrees. So 180 degrees is basically a straight line. So if I were to take these two angles up here, 3 and 4, I can see that even though one of them is acute and one of them is obtuse, together, when they are written together as a pair, as a linear pair, they form a straight line. So supplementary angles adds up to 180 degrees. So any linear pair, no matter what it is, will be supplementary because a linear pair forms a line, and lines are 180 degrees or half of a circle. You should write all of these down. They are extremely important and are going to come up for the next few months.